this meeting on time. We'll start by attendance, and we'll start with Dorothy and go around the room.
Dorothy Banishevsky.
Line people.
Okay, Dorothy Banishevsky, Facilities Construction.
Michael Guida, CORC.
Holly Hahn, Office of the General Counsel.
Michael Tubiolo, Facilities Construction.
David Dolan, Facilities Management.
David Porter, CORC.
Barbara Myers, Construction Purchasing.
Bill Hugo, CORC.
Mark Lodge, Building Code Services.
Tom Hogarth, Building Code Services.
Louise Feldkamp, Facilities Construction. Renee Ray with Randolph Construction Group.
Jacob Katz, Total Construction.
Sean Maurer, Code Construction.
Angel Garcia, Facilities Construction.
Bob Bliss, Office of Inspector General.
James Campbell, Chief Operating Officer.
Simran Wagre, The Whites Company.
Okay, and go ahead, Dorothy. Line for
We
it.
have John Cheshire,
Yes, hello, good morning.
Michael Gelfand,
Good morning, President.
and Sam Shannon.
Sam Shannon, President and CORC.
Okay, thank you. Did Virginia ask for an absence, or she's just not signed on yet?
I haven't seen her yet.
Okay.
And Mr. Sanchez has just joined us.
Okay, very good.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, I have nothing to report. Do we have anyone online or in the room with a conflict of interest for anything today? And we are supposed to disclose if we've been approached by any lobbyists. So has anyone been approached by a lobbyist for anything to appear before us today? Okay, Virginia has signed on. That's good. All right, hearing none for either of those. That's good. CORC report. Dorothy did our report and went to the board. So that process is working out in transition from Lou Doctor. We are down to staff updates already. Michael, do you have any?
Nothing right now. So.
Okay, we're gonna keep this light and no updates from staff at this point. I'll get into it in my presentation.
So I was going to say, what, that means you did nothing this past month?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
Well, Winbrook, we had a groundbreaking song.
Okay. Public comments. Any comments from public members? All right. Zipping right on along here. All right. We're up to consent agenda. Here we go. FC1.
Yes, John.
Okay. FC2. FC3. FC4. FC5. And I wanted to pull that also.
What was that, John?
John. Yep. FC6. Okay. PC1. PC2. PC3. PC4. I wanted to pull that one. PC5. All right, Virginia, all yours.
Move the items forward that have not been pulled on consent agenda.
Second.
Taken by Sam. All right, Dorothy, poll us, please.
Bill Hukio,
Here.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, John, you're up with FC1.
Yes, my item, let's see, is number 5. Blue Lake, this is the description is cost to connect elevator to emergency generator. And the justification is the cost to connect the elevator to the generator were inadvertently left out of the electrical and elevator subcontractor bids. And this always is an issue for me when there's a missing bid item, so I had a few questions about that. If Dorothy, if you could go to page 2 of the questions and responses. The answers to my questions doesn't seem to support that reason. Okay, we got the questions and answers.
I'm getting there, sorry.
Follow up? No?
Attendance meeting documents.
Page 2, I believe. There, we're getting there. I asked was the work clearly shown on the electrical drawings, and the answer was no. And then it goes on to explain the electrical power one-line diagram, the elevator circuit tied to an optional ATS-EQ. But the specified elevator was a hydraulic elevator, and the specifications indicate that was supposed to be a battery furnished by the elevator contractor. I don't think the statement about a battery precludes an electrical circuit to the ATS, but we'll continue on from there. It says, after the elevator was installed, it was required to be connected to the generator. I assume you're talking about the replacement elevator, not the original elevator, is that correct?
I was incorrect about the replacement elevator. It was actually a hydraulic elevator that was installed. So there was no change to the type of elevator.
Okay. What about the one-line diagram? It says a circuit goes to an optional ATS EQ. Was the optional ATS EQ provided?
So the discrepancy, John, this is Angel Garcia. The discrepancy is that the project specifications for the elevator called for a hydraulic elevator. And it said, in the event of a normal power supply failure, program the elevator system to lower from the emergency power supply. And then it goes on to say, the emergency power supply shall consist of a battery furnished by the elevator contractor. So the hydraulic elevator that was provided on the job per the project specifications called for a hydraulic elevator with a battery lowering system. That's what the elevator company provided. The electrical drawings show the emergency generator tied to the elevator via an optional standby automatic transfer switch. But the hydraulic elevator with a battery lowering system cannot have that system and be tied to the emergency generator at the same time. It's either one or the other. They cannot do both. So the elevator was installed per the specs. When the electrician did the job, what Moss explained to us was that they provided to the electrician that it was going to be a hydraulic elevator furnished with a battery lowering system, and they did not include the work to tie it to the emergency generator, even though the drawings do call for it to be tied to the optional standby automatic transfer switch tied to the emergency generator.
Now, in addition to that, there was another conflict on the electrical drawings on another sheet referenced the battery as a note 11 over the elevator, saying it should be a battery backup for that, not tied to the generator. So the electrical drawings by themselves had that conflict in it. So there was a conflict in the contract documents. Yeah.
And so for the work to be done, this came out during final inspections right before TCO, and the inspector pointed out that it needed to be tied to the emergency generator, that the elevator needed to be tied to the emergency generator. So in the effort to try to get TCO, the work was done. The elevator company had to remove the battery, had to remove the controls because they were set up in the program for the battery to lower the elevator, had to put new controls in so that it could receive power from the transfer switch. And that was the cost associated with the elevator. And the electrician did the connection from the generator all the way to the elevator. And that was done in an effort to get the TCO when it came out during final inspections. That's how this came to be.
Dorothy, if you could scroll down to page 7, I believe. The Moss cover letter for the backup.
No, what, John?
The
Questions and
attachment,
answers?
Response.
yeah, the attachment to the responses.
Oh, page 7. Okay, I got you. Got
So
it.
in the Moss cover letter, it says the scope was inadvertently left out of the elevator and the electrical subcontractors bids, I guess is what you said in the FC1 document. But why does it say that if it was never in the bid? It sounds to me more like it was a design omission. Is that not correct?
There's a contradiction in the documents, John, between the project specs for the elevator and the way it's supposed to get emergency power and lower down to the first floor. And the drawings themselves have it tied to the emergency generator, but there's a note that says provide power in accordance with the approved elevator submittal or shop drawings. So there's a contradiction in the documents and which caused the confusion and was missed. The work was missed that way. I guess that's what the letter is trying to explain. They didn't do a good job at it, but that's what I think what they're trying to explain.
So who provided the optional, what was it, ATS EQ?
It ended up being provided as part of the change by the electrical contractor.
I didn't see that in his backup documentation, did I? I don't see it on there.
The ATS.
Yeah. Did I miss it?
Well, there's already an ATS. The ATS is there from the rest of the project. It's tying into the.
It's confusing because it's called as an optional ATS. So was it provided originally or did it come in after the fact?
Your point, there has to be an ATS because you have generators.
Yeah, if you have a generator, you have an ATS already.
That's what I'm saying. It was part of the original.
But the EQ notes it as an equipment branch, which means that it would power up equipment like air handlers and elevators.
So it'd be a different ATS than you.
Probably 3 ATSs on the job: life safety, equipment, probably 2. There's no.
Don't we already have? Don't we have an ATS for equipment for the card readers and
Everything.
those
Would be the life safety. The life safety.
Oh, that would be considered life safety.
Yeah, emergency lighting and fire alarm and.
No, card readers aren't life safety. They access control on certain critical items, but not on all. Like we have it now as a feature in our design specs that every card reader will be put on the generator, but not everything in the past has been on the generator.
So I don't see the ATS in their material breakdown.
No.
Dorothy, could you go to page 8? Scroll up to page 8. The elevator pricing for this. There it is. It's that thing. No, one more, up a little higher. Right. If you read what the elevator contractor said, add emergency power to work with generator. I guess that's kind of an overreach there. This includes all labor, hardware, and software to complete hookup. I guess that's what he did. But then it also goes on to say, Moss agrees to issue a formal change order to Dyson Krupp Elevator for the storage of the elevators upon receipt of this document. What's that all about?
Where do you see that?
Just above, right there. Small, kind of big
It
letter.
starts out by saying add emergency power, that line.
Right there.
Oh, okay, I see it.
My guess is that's referring to the elevators were on site and they, I don't know.
But if the story was they were installed, you guys were getting ready to start it up, and the inspector said you need emergency power, this doesn't make any sense about storage.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do the documents show power to the elevator from the emergency branch?
The electrical drawing showed it from
I don't know if that statement means a whole lot to us in our consideration, because that's an arrangement between Moss and the vendor. it's not our concern. It's not germane to, they're just saying they agree, Moss agrees to a change order for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that could be true. I'm just concerned that there's some cost involved with that shouldn't be for the school district included in their backup, but I guess we'll never know that.
Yeah, but your point, I think we would have seen it because we don't even see the ATS, that optional ATS in there.
I think even as part of the 7,700, is there something there?
Oh, you think it's, rolled into that. Okay, I'm sorry. I understand.
Okay, well, this is pretty confusing, and I don't think the write-up was correct. It was inadvertently left out, but.
And I think, if I don't want to go too far out on a limb, but John, it definitely has raised the question for us because Blue Lake is obviously the footprint for the new school that we're in the middle of designing and about to go to construction on. So we recognize this as one of the learned lessons. I know Angel had brought it up initially. So the team's working on making sure that we sort through the issues. So we're very clear on what the scope needs to be on Arden, so on the pricing. And I don't know if there was a code issue as to whether it's a code requirement versus changing our master spec to accommodate for that.
Yeah, that's all that combined. And so that we did have the same issue on Grove Park with the elevator because they had the same exact engineer that had the same note that said tied to the battery and then the same one line that said do it to the generator. So, but on West Acreage, it has been fixed. But we were able to catch it a lot earlier in Grove Park because of the situation that came about.
So for Grove Park, will we be seeing this same change order?
I wanted to, we have already.
We've already seen a change order for Grove Park. They did catch that while the elevator was still at the shop, so they were able to change it there.
All right. Judd had his hand up.
That was because I think he's the Grove Park.
Yeah, we caught it early and it was about half the cost to do it because we caught it early. So.
Yeah, I do remember that coming through maybe 3 months ago.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, John?
I'm just happy the SPAs were listening and tuned in.
Do you want to make a motion, John?
Yeah, I move that FC1 move forward to the board for approval without objection.
Second.
Second by Virginia. Any other comments, questions? Poll us, please, Dorothy.
Bill Hukio,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yeah, yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, we're down to FC5. Michael Gelfand, you pulled it and I pulled it.
So, on the fish, my question every year, and I think the last couple of years we've passed on this, what are we supposed to be evaluating?
It's an item that has to go to the board. It's a standard annual report that is required by Florida Department of Education, and it needs to be signed off by the board and the board chair. So because it is an item that goes before the board, it seems, that's why it's generally pushed through as an item that goes to CORC. Because I guess I'm doing to a certain extent, I'm doing the CYA of if you CORC members saw that an item was on the board next week that didn't come before you this week, you might object. And while it may not necessarily have any action or feedback by CORC, it's something that you ought to know that we do on an annual basis. We are responsible for, required to submit it each year.
So,
Michael, I pulled it for the very similar reason, basically to say that I thought our answer back to the board just be, we received it, but we have not reviewed it.
Yeah.
I'd say that, we just don't even make a motion and the report to the board contain the chair's comments. We just
do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we're not reviewing it. We're not commenting about Michael Guida.
I was I pulled up the CORC report for the fish report from last year, and it gives you a total number of classrooms. And from last year to this year, there's a minus 37 classroom reduction. I figure we're spending all this money, we should have an increase in class. Right?
I don't know if Deborah's on to.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's one lady, and he makes reference. Deborah Corman is our facilities planner, kind of, and
We have decommissioned quite a few portables that were old, so that maybe count into that, but
it's kind of
just guessing.
But look at all the classrooms we added with the high school.
Garcia and with middle school. Yes. So
Virginia.
oh, there's Deborah.
Deborah's on.
Yes.
Go ahead, let Deborah go first. Deborah?
Good morning, all. It's a balancing of the classrooms. We have demolished some portables. We've also demolished some other schools, and we built some schools that were smaller than originally, say, example, of Malaluca or whatever. So it's just doing that. That's the basics of it. So we might have lost 37. Or they might have reclassified a couple of rooms from classrooms. Or resource rooms or so forth. We might have reclassified. Kimberly and I have been doing a lot of fish validations, walking our schools. So that might have count of reducing some classrooms also.
Right. The numbers may not have been perfectly accurate. Do those walks to try to validate on an annual basis.
Virginia?
I, for one, appreciate receiving this, and I hope we do continue to receive it. I think it's a good picture each year of where we are on the building. So I would appreciate that it continues to come, and I congratulate Deborah and her team for the work that they put into this, and I truly appreciate it.
Michael Gelfand.
So I appreciate Ms. Ferris's comment, but Mr. Guida's gets to a point, and though we really don't have a say in this report, Mr. Sanchez, I would suggest that you probably want to have the information from the board so that they understand it and can respond when there's a question that's raised like Mr. Guida's, because the explanations that I've heard don't answer the question. And they're probably really good reasons, but it would seem that a simple chart showing why we're down, if that's actually what it is there. No need for a response to my comment, but just a heads up, especially in this day and age. Thank you.
Okay, so is the consensus we just tell the board in our report to the board that we have received it and we've looked at it but have no...
Yeah, I pulled it. I have no motion to make.
Okay. All right, then it's a report received and reviewed. We don't need to make a motion on that. All right, and keep going down consent here.
Did you want to add the comment about the difference in the number of classrooms or not?
Well, if we do that, then we've reviewed it and discussed it, and then the board's going to, possibly want us to give them another explanation. I don't know.
Perhaps in the board report, we just make a comment on that, but I don't think that we vote on anything.
Yeah, I think, Dorothy, the board report can say it was noted that, the bottom line is that we're 37 classrooms less than we were last year. And then let staff explain that to the board if they have a question about it, because it's a valid point.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Michael Gelfand, FC6.
So the numbers just raise a question for me. You've got 47 portables, 20 months, and it's $2.5 million plus. At least that's the way I see it, and if I'm wrong, let me know. Can someone validate these numbers? I don't have the background for it. It just pops at me.
Certainly, and thank you, Mr. Gelfand, for bringing this up. It is certainly a kind of an oddball item, especially in the fact that rarely, this is not even a change order where we're adding scope or anything like that. It's more of a budget increase, which is strictly moving money around on the paper to make sure that we have everything funded. I'm going to let staff start talking about it because we've at least an hour meeting yesterday going over this for the same exact reason, because it does look, if you break it down and you don't look at the quotes, because we do have the quotes, you don't look at the quotes, it looks like, 5 portables cost a whole lot more per unit than 47 portables do. And there's reasons behind that. I'll turn this over to staff to kind of mention that.
Yeah, I guess from a conceptual level and then we can kind of dive into the numbers as much as you want. But basically, when we first put the budget together for these projects, we were able to build an elementary school in just over a year. Obviously, times has changed since then, and that takes a lot longer in the market. So there was a need to add some budget there. In addition to that, we had left off the scope to basically bring the site back after all this work is done, to bring it back, tear down all the infrastructure and put sod and grade and all that kind of stuff in there, which is part of this cost, which is approximately $500,000. As far as the numbers go, we have a contract with a portable company, and the numbers vary depending on what kind of unit it is and when we get the quote. But they're all within the same range of between $1,600 and $1,800 per unit per month. So that's our going rate for portables.
That's the rent. That's the lease.
Now there is a fee, one-time fee with each portable to drive it obviously to the site and set it up. And then we have to go back in there with our contractor and make sure it meets code with foundations, covered walkways, sidewalks, electrical hookups, plumbing hookups, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of costs that go into that for this project. So we had 47 portables there before, and we had to add 5 because we have more students going there and this time around. So this was the holding school. It's now the holding school for Winbrook, but it was the holding school for Melaleuca before that. So,
and we've attributed that the extra, I want to say 20 months, is that approximately the extra months when translated, I think we were paying the same unit cost in those additional 20 months as the unit costs that we had paid for the first 24 or whatever it was, 18 or 24 months. So that unit cost, that unit lease value is exactly the same. So if it was a $1,600 charge for a unit for the first 24 months, it's that same $1,600 charge for the last 20. If it was an $1,800 unit, that same unit goes across. So we validated that the number we're paying for these units that we're budgeting to pay the bill each month for those units is the same all the way through. It's not that anything's been cost us any more this time around for the last 20 months as for the first 24 months.
So these were extending the lease for portables that had been installed because we just needed more time to finish off the project.
Yeah, the 5, when we did the 5, those were added after Melaleuca was completed, after Melaleuca left. We're basically adding those 5 on because when Winbrook came in, they had more students. So we needed those 5 extras. When we paid for the Winbrook 5, we paid for the entirety of the duration, the full duration. So those were kind of covered as that full amount. What we did not account for is that the original 47 needed an additional 20 months, and that's where we're budgeting for that money. So while it's all 52 units together, they're all at the same cost. They came through at different times. The 5 were part of a change order. And then now we've realized we're short on the budget for paying the lease bills for the 47 that continue to remain there.
The Winbrook 5 sounds like a Breakfast Club breakout sequel here, but the Winbrook 5, that's included in the 2625.
Not in the additional funds that we're asking.
It's not in the additional funds. The Winbrook 5, as you referred, were from, and I want to say it was like October of 23 through May of 25. That's the full remaining duration. I believe that's the date we had. I want to say October. It might have been actually May of 23, but from the starting point when we brought them on site until the end of May 25, when we will no longer need them.
But it's the same fund source that we're using. So the fact that we had to, when we initially way long ago planned for 5 portables for Winbrook, we were thinking 12 months because we paid more for those 5 portables because we leased them longer than what we did when we first budgeted to do this work way back when.
So,
but that's already been paid for. So now we're having to go back and do the 47 extension.
So just, quickly adding it up, I get $1,006,000, 47 times 1,800 using the higher amount times 20 is at, well, close to $1,007,000, which is, almost $1 million short of what the increase is.
So we have around $500,000 of restore fees. So after everything, the holding holding campus is done to restore it back to what it should have been at the end. And then the removal of the portables too is a cost from
mobile modular.
Yeah. And then we do have a, 100 or 200,000 of contingency in there just to be safe.
But all of those costs would have been part of the original budget for those items, all of what I'll refer to as the infrastructure expenses, bringing it on, hooking it up, restoring the property, takedown. That would have been part of the original lease. Leanne, help me.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Gelfing, you're in good company because we've got the same question coming in from the superintendent. So we're working on an answer for that. But the way we do portable campuses, and we did this with the school that we used for Verdi and Addison Meisner, that was where Blue Lake is now. The first school using the campus paid for the installation of the portables. The second school paid for sending the portables back in the site restoration. So we kind of split it up. This one is a little different than because Melaleuca needed 47 units, Winbrook needs another 5. So the Melaleuca project paid for the installation of the 47 portables plus the monthly rent for the portables while the students were there. Then it switched over to Melaleuca, to the Winbrook project, and Winbrook is paying for the monthly rental for the portables while the students from their school are using them. And then they will pay for the return of all the units and the complete site restoration. So it's not a completely even split, but it's the easiest way we can do it to split those two, the costs out.
It sounds like, though, that there's some substantial questions that still need to be answered on this. And I understand the split between the two school budget. That's one reasonable way of approaching it. But it would seem that all the Grosslay's infrastructure costs would have been part of the original effort. And I would suggest, unless there's some reason, that we postpone this to the next meeting to let staff get this, because otherwise we're just grasping at information here.
I'm not in line with that. The budgeted numbers that we have, what we're going to provide to the board is a more concise breakdown of the costs associated with the rentals and what was included. What we're acknowledging is that we did omit certain items from our project budget. We omitted the site restoration, and to a certain extent, some of the costs associated with the decommissioning of the portables. We acknowledge that there were misses when we were budgeting them, and we're accounting for them now. There is money available to be able to fund those. We're going to make sure that we have a consolidated report for the board so that they can see better where these numbers are coming from so that they add up to the $2.6 million. But again, it's a function of moving money as opposed to questioning the scope of the project. What I am acknowledging is there were faults on our part that we missed certain items and that we're catching them up now.
So I'm not pointing fingers one way or at the other. It's for our review purposes, have the justification for it. And whether we take no motion at all, whether we postpone it or vote no, I don't care on it. I just can't see voting yes on this where we don't have the information. The information is apparently in process of being developed, being delivered to the board, but we're not going to be there to give them any type of comfort level that we've reviewed it. So, if staff wants to make a choice of the trifecta, let me know and I'll make the motion.
Well, we don't know. Okay. We understand where you're coming from. We're trying to pay some bills on the portables. Now, I don't know how close we are to being able to pay this month's bills on the portable rentals. If we're out of money or if we're close, I think that's the one area where we do have to pay bills. I don't think there's any other items that are contractor related or vendor related that they're not getting money now. So, for example, the $500,000 to delay for restoration, I have no problems with delaying that. What I am concerned about is that by failing to move this forward now, I don't know where we stand as far as paying the bills for this coming month on 52 rentals. If it's not a problem, if staff determines that it's fine, because it sounds like that's the one, then we're okay. If Miss Evans says she's going to dip into her bucket of money and help us out to pay this 1 month while we reconcile everything, then thank you, Miss Evans. But I can't say that for her. But please go ahead. Leanne.
Yeah, actually, the problem is that because the cost of the monthly rental of the 47 portables that were already on site was not included in the budget. We have not paid the rental for the units, and that dollar amount that we owe the vendor is creeping up to an uncomfortable level. We do need to pay the vendor, and I can't do that without increasing the budget, and I don't have the authority to increase the budget without going to the board. So we do need to get this moving forward to the board. Staff is working on a spreadsheet that breaks the costs out. Is there some way that we can follow up and send that all out to you so you can see the breakdown? Because I think that's the answer. You need to see the components that adds up to the additional $2.6 million they're needing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like with any of the organizations or my law firm, when they come in with a check, the backup's not there, I don't sign the check. And the backup may be there. Now, this doesn't prevent the school board from approving this at their meeting. It's just, I'm saying that I don't have the backup to make an informed decision on this. And to the extent that, staff pick the best of three bad options on this, because I'd rather not vote no on it. But, we could vote to postpone, and you can tell the board that, here's the information, you need to vote on it now.
The one thing we can't is postpone it, so we can.
What was the number that you came up with, Mr. Gelfand?
1692.
Okay, so we had the 1692. We had 500,000 that was for the site restoration after the portables are moved. And then we had contingency funds in there. I don't know how much the contingency funds were. So
1,000 plus we have the decommissioning part.
Plus the decommissioning. So that brings us right up in that vicinity of the 2.6. You have your 1.6 plus the 500,000 for site restoration. That comes to 2.1 plus contingency and decommissioning.
But there's no backup at all here.
I understand that, and we will provide the backup. The other thing is that this is just a budget increase, and that, it's not the exact amount that will be paid. We will pay the costs as they are documented and submitted to us, so that we have invoices to pay on this. So that's not an exact amount that will be spent on the project. It's how much we're going to have in our budget to cover our costs.
Michael, it means we're still probably going to get a shot at whatever the final costs are, because that will be coming to us just like a change order from a contractor.
That's true.
But you'll see a reconciliation.
It's a little different, I think, than, approving extra money to a budget to cover something that wasn't included. I mean, we do that on construction projects without knowing what the ultimate number will be. It's not like they're writing a check for this amount. We never get to see the reconciliation of how they got there. If Michael doesn't wish to make a motion, does anyone else wish to make a motion to move this forward?
I have a question.
Bill.
Yeah, I'm confused really by this discussion. Question I have is, how important is it that this go this month and not be delayed until next month?
As Leanne
was
saying, they need to increase the budget to be able to pay the rental cost that hasn't been paid yet, that is due. And waiting another month may very much complicate that.
So in my mind, I'd rather have a no than a postpone, because at least it gives the board opportunity to review the new information to make that decision. But postponing it isn't a good option.
Don Cheshire.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with this one either. Unless I'm hearing incorrectly, the description or the justification doesn't tell the whole story. It's just saying that the budget is being increased because of the portables, but I'm hearing that there's other reasons you need to increase the budget. So without the proper backup, I'm not comfortable moving this forward to the board or approving this.
Michael.
Mr. Chair, I respectfully disagree with some of the more recent comments about that this is just a budget item. Because what I'm also hearing is that this budget item needs to be done now so that the money can be paid. So if we're serving as the gatekeeper on this, we don't have the backup information to serve as that gatekeeper. Again, the board can do whatever it wants, and the staff, when it has this type of time crunch, can go in there and get the board to take action. But I think it's inappropriate for us to approve this without having the basic information, especially as staff is apparently now in the process of preparing it. And this is not, again, point a finger one way or another. It's just a simple gatekeeper function that we're serving. And, let me go for it. And, I certainly appreciate the whole school concepts and everything we do to, save money and keep the kids safe in there. It's just that on this one bill, when it goes to the board, they need the backup.
Virginia.
I agree that I'm glad that this was pulled. I wasn't quite sure myself why we were adding so much more money. And my question is the $3.8 million the common amount we're paying for a holding school? I mean, that could build most of an elementary school.
No, we paid, I think, almost $5 million, if I recall correctly, to build the Verde/Meisner portable or temporary campus.
Ms. Evans can answer the number, because I think she probably has it off the tip of her tongue. How much is the cost in 2 years?
Yeah, I don't have that on the tip of my tongue, but the cost of holding schools are very expensive, and the cost of an elementary school at this point is now close to $40 million. So the costs have accelerated exponentially. And I argue this point all the time. Why can't we keep the kids on campus and instead of doing a holding school? But we're to the point that the construction sites are very small. There's not room to do what we used to do 20 years ago and build, in most cases, to build a whole, to have the kids stay in their school while we build a new school, then tear the old school down. In the case of these schools, there's no room to keep the students on campus, and keeping them on campus also makes the construction last longer. So for the last few schools, they've been moving the students to holding schools, and they are expensive. And there's no, I've argued that point as well. And I've heard from the construction department many times where they walk through the options they have. And this is the best option they have. When you have a small site, you need to move the kids off campus in order to build the school. And we don't have enough room. These students are at Crestwood. We're actually using some classrooms in Crestwood, but there's not enough to house all the students. At the same time, we've got West Riviera. The students are on the second floor of Lincoln. So when we can put them in an existing school to save that money, we certainly do. But in this case, there was not another option. And it is expensive, but it's the only way to get the school constructed. We have to have a place for the students. We are renting the portables, which is a lot less expensive than moving modulars, the big concrete modulars we used to move around. And gosh, someday we can have a discussion about how much that costs. But this is the least expensive and best option for the kids. It is expensive. Verdi, the holding campus that was used by Verdi and Addison actually costs more than this. So this is actually less expensive than what we did at Verdi and Addison.
Okay. Do we have any motion on this item? And if we don't, then the parliamentarians on our committee, what does happen then? It just dies?
We move on, period.
Okay.
I'd suggest that we go to the next item on the agenda, Mr. Chair, as we have no motion.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, one of the things that we can do is bring back the agenda item, because I think this needs to go ahead and move forward to the board with the additional backups that we provide. So we can bring that back to you at the next meeting so you can see the details of it.
One of the appropriate motions would be to postpone till the next meeting in order to have the backup.
Okay. You want to make that motion?
Knowing that staff will, I don't want to say disobey, but will go against.
Does someone want to make a motion to postpone to bring back with backup information at the next meeting?
I'll move.
All right. Do we have a second on that postponement motion?
I'll second it.
Michael Guida seconded that. Any other comments or questions? All right. So the motion will be to postpone. Dorothy, poll us, please.
Bill Hukio? Bill?
My confusion is really bugging the hell out of me.
Well, the motion right now is just to postpone it. So we're not going to vote yes, we're not going to vote no. We're just postponing. The board will probably still vote on this because they need to move the money now.
But the same result would occur if it was voted down here. That motion still would go to the board and they could straighten it out themselves, or they'd be forced to make a decision on it. Is that right or wrong?
But I think if we vote it down for the board, they're going to want to know, okay, what does CORC know that we're not seeing in this? Why'd they vote it down? But if we postpone it because we want more backup information, that's information the board can decide with.
All right, what I'm going to do is delay my vote until we've gone around the table.
All right, and part of that motion is the reason for the postponement is to get the additional backup.
Yes, exactly. Is a member allowed to delay their vote until the end?
Yes, as long as they vote.
Okay. All right, Dorothy, continue then.
David Porter?
Yes.
Frank Simon? Okay, John Cheshire?
Yes.
Was that yes from John or from Frank?
Was
yes.
Yes.
Yes, from John.
Frank?
Yes.
Thank you. Michael Gelfand?
Yes.
Michael Guida?
Yes.
Sam Shannon? Pam? Virginia Ferris?
Yes. And Sam is muted.
Did you see him say yes?
No, he's trying to get the microphone on.
Okay, I said, no, I was convinced from Leanne's presentation that this whole issue is in order and it can go forward.
You voted no.
So he voted no because, okay.
Okay. And Bill Hukill?
Yes.
Okay, that resolves FC6. We're down to PC2. Michael Gelfand, you pulled it.
What was the result of the vote, please?
7 yes, 1 no.
7-1.
Thank you.
So with the increased number of mass shootings and the efforts to allow teenagers to have automatic weapons, I'm looking at another school project. We're concentrating in essence on the building itself as opposed to keeping people away from the building that have weapons. And this week again, if you saw the Palm Beach Post just a couple of days ago about the latest report on mass shootings and kids and guns et al. And the trial now occurring in Michigan of the second parent who allowed the kid to have the guns. My question is, this request for bid, are we going to have walls and gates up around the field that this field house is going to be serving?
That's a no.
Until we start, from my perspective, planning for what everyone says is going to occur because of the proliferation, I'm going to vote no on this, just so that it's clear for the record, so that if anyone, you have to make your board report, don't mean to inhibit the need to move forward on projects. But you've heard my comments on this before. Thank you.
Okay, that was the only person that pulled it. Do we have a motion on this item? PC2?
Move to go forward.
Okay. We have a second by Sam. Any other comments or questions? All right, Dorothy Paulus, please.
Bill Hukill?
Before the polling, will part of the report indicate Michael's concerns?
I hope so.
If he votes no, we'll confirm with him after the vote. Or anybody else votes no. We'll confirm after the vote.
Yeah, because we do want the board to hear his comment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bill Hukill?
Yes.
David Porter?
Yes.
Frank Simon?
Yes.
Thank you. John Cheshire?
Yes.
Michael Gelfand?
No.
Michael Guida?
Yeah, yes.
Sam Shannon?
Yes.
Virginia Ferris?
Yes.
Okay, last one pulled. I pulled it.
Can we confirm?
Michael, what's your objection so we can get it into the report?
The proposal does not incorporate necessary safety measures to protect against the proliferation of weapons, including automatic weapons in the hands of teenagers.
Okay, thank you. I know. We're on to PC4. I pulled that only for a question. I didn't have any problem with it. It looks like the legislature may be bumping the CCNA number to 7.5 million. So my question is whether staff had some thoughts of how we might adjust what we've started as the $2 to $4 million category, and whether that number goes up or not.
I don't want to speak for purchasing.
If there's no plan yet, then that's all I need.
Well, no, I don't want to put out, especially with the knowledge that others might be watching and listening. I don't think, even from the construction side, I don't think we have a consensus as to what we're going to do. And we're certainly going to work with purchasing because we have current contracts in place with durations and such. So I don't know exactly where our our perspective will be. And we also want to make sure we stay within the bounds of.
And I think that last time, I think what was 3 years ago when it bumped it up from 2 to 4, the process then was district leadership really had that conversation with the superintendent. So that would be, which in all likelihood, it appears that these levels will increase with the new legislation. I think that, kind of what will happen next would be leadership will have an internal discussion to figure out what they want to do. And then whatever they want to do, we would amend the continuing contracts to reflect the statutory amounts.
Yeah, my thought is we just set up a whole new higher category. I mean, leave the 2 to 4. We've already got those selected. And then go 4 to 7.5 because it's going to be a different caliber of contractor. But that's just me. Okay.
Like I said, not passing any position.
Yeah. Understood. Okay. Need a motion to allow this to go forward?
Move to go forward.
Okay. Need a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Michael Guida. Dorothy?
Bill Hukio,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon.
You just muted him.
I muted him, yes.
It's on mute.
His dog said yes.
Did I hear both on that one?
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Hey, Sam, can you hear us?
His dog still might be barking. Okay, we're down to in progress FCA work update.
Okay. Again, I'll zip through it, but we know it's me talking, so it never really goes all that fast. Right, Dorothy?
Yes.
You can see we've got about $700 million in expenditures and about 1.1 in revenues. So we're trying to catch back up and make sure we stay on task. And as you're all familiar, we're always going to be a little bit behind. We can't spend money that hasn't come in. So we're working on them. One of the challenges I will say that the construction department experiences now is that we're getting into the later years of the program. And when it comes to facility renewals, our early years, we would have one contract for $15 million for a school, whether high school or so. Now we're getting into the schools later in the list that are lower in dollar value. The facility renewals are lower in dollar value. So we're talking about $1 million, $2 million worth of work. So in order to get $15 million, that's 7 projects instead of 1 project. So we're trying to, and we are ramping up the actual services, the number of projects we do. And so there's a slowly declining amount per month or per quarter that we're spending. And so staff is working right now on alternatives to try to wrap around and figure out how to finish the end year, the last 2 years of the program. Great, we ended a year early, by the way. But we're trying to figure out how to make sure that we get that work all pulled in and other ways to approach that. That's why the $2 to $4 million CMARC contracts are very important to us. Make sure that we're bundling projects and organizing scopes so that we can more efficiently spend the money and make sure that we're done on time. Moving on, got our list of upcoming solicitations. You'll notice all the reds are a lot of the continuings. So there are few of the actual RFPs coming up in the next couple of months. But we do have a lot of work. Next. I'll leave this up there. You guys can all, especially our consultants and contractors, they all know which ones are coming to the board and ultimately to you at CORC. And we are maintaining these, as you can see. We're cranking them out between April and May, knowing full well some of these projects we're going to try to do a little bit of work in the summer. But the ones that go in May, we may not get a whole lot done. So we are pretty well set in the projects that we are going to have to be under contract for this summer. Next. I'm not going to read through all these. You're all welcome to. This is more of a detailed description of what's going on the planning side of our next round of projects. This next slide is a little bit more detail on, as you see, the design and GMP. So these are the ones that are out of the planning and actually in the hands of architects and/or contractors. Facility renewals, you'll see there's a quite great number of slides that describe the activities that are ongoing. We are busily working intermittently through schools, knowing full well that we're already ramping up for summer. We've already issued our letter to schools to identify to them what schools will be having summer construction. Yeah, Dorothy, go ahead. While I'm talking, you can go through the rest of these pictures. Basically, summer work, we have to give the schools more than advance notice so that they can plan for who's going to have summer school, who's going to have summer camp, what kind of extended learning programs are there. What schools are we feeding students out of? Because our school food service program, we feed a lot of students during the summer and they stop by schools. So we got to make sure that where their programs are, our construction is not impacting them. So we're dealing with a great deal of logistics right now, trying to make sure that all the schools that we have to work on, we can work on and still leave parts of it open for those services. Okay, next one up is Grove Park. Judd, we're coming down the finish line of Grove Park. You can see that you'll see in the photos that a lot of the work is done. Project is going through final inspections. It's actually starting, it looks like a good new school now. And again, as a reminder, this is a school that while we may be done now, we anticipate we'll be basically done around spring break. We will not be moving the students into Grove Park until the start of the new school year in August. Next one up is Angels Project. That's at Pine Grove. And Ms. Evans talked about this earlier. We generally move, like at Grove Park, we move the students out to a holding school. In Pine Grove, we're doing the exact opposite. We did have a little bit of land. There was a park adjacent to us, and we were able to take a little bit of that land and build a temporary parking lot, which allowed us to leave the building, as I mentioned last month. The big donut in the bottom is the existing building where the students are in. The big Z-shaped building on the top, and then there's two buildings right next to it. Those two there are the existing buildings that are being renovated. So we tilted up and have built the Z-shaped building and are in the middle of renovating the other two so that come August, those students that are currently sitting in the middle of the donut building will then move out to the other buildings. We will then knock down the donut building and turn that into a parking lot and then give back the old park. So that project, that's why, as Ms. Evans mentioned, we will be an extra 9 or 12 months because the second phase parking lot will be a delay. And in fact, it is a bit of a distraction and a bit of a challenge for the school to operate in the donut building with tilt walls and roofing and all the activities going on that same property in such close proximity. So it is a bit of a challenge, and we are treading lightly on it. But this one, we really had little chance on this. So yes, Ms. Ferris.
I'm wondering how they're operating now without a parking lot, and if they're managing, why isn't this donut school being thought of as a holding school?
It does have a parking lot. It's got a temporary parking lot. If you can see on the photo right now, in the bottom right-hand corner, that's the park. There's a park directly adjacent to our property that the school district owns. So we took part of that park and created a parking lot. So that's where teachers and staff park. And then there's this, you can't see it on this photo, but there's a giant covered walkway that leads them around the outside of the construction back to that donut building. Yeah, you can see the end of the covered walkway right there. So there is a parking lot, and ultimately That temporary parking lot is exactly that. It's temporary. It's not ideal. It's not the perfect environment. So the donut building is in, I don't want to say it's in bad shape, but it's older, and it certainly does not warrant continued renovation to use it as a holding school. That's why ultimately that donut building will be knocked down and a parking lot and the formal parking lot constructed in its place.
Well, I understand that it may need some renovation, but if it's being used as a holding school for 1 year, if they're in it now without it being remodeled, I just wondered if you're considering that.
The school is beyond what I'd say. In order to do a renovation, any sort of, I don't want to say Band-Aid, but some sort of small work on it, the small Band-Aids would not have that much of an impact. We're getting to the end of the life cycle of a lot of the equipment at that building. So it would be a substantial investment to renovate it in order to use it for a holding school beyond the 1 year. Okay. Next one, Winbrook. We have just gotten started on that. You'll notice the abatement on the old buildings. Demolition of building 1 is complete, except for FP&L. And you'll see on the photos, site clearing is moving forward. It's hard to see on that first one because the bottom is not demoed yet. You'll see that on the next photo. It's the top portion of that photo where the buildings have been knocked down. The building just to the north of the cleared area, that building is going to remain. That is actually going to be renovated as part. It didn't meet the qualifications for demolition. It wasn't old enough. NOE doesn't view it having been old enough. So that's where the new school is going to be built and the renovated portion. West Riviera Elementary. We will begin at the start of the summer. We're going to move the West Riv kids into Lincoln because at the start of summer, we're moving the Lincoln students and stuff into the Grove Park students that are currently in Lincoln. We're moving them into their new school. Once they're out, we'll move the West Riv kids, staff, all their equipment into the second floor of Lincoln. And we will then immediately begin on the remediation at West Riv and then knocking it down. That's why I said we'll demolition in July. Okay. Additions and remodeling, Delray full service, again, coming down the finish line. You can see the final lift of asphalt and they're continuing on the punch list and final inspections. I believe the final inspections are in process right now. We've been going through them. Historic Roosevelt. That project, we had you might remember last month made reference to the groundbreaking there at Historic Roosevelt, and they have already begun a lot of the demolition projects, As a reminder, we are renovating the existing gymnasium. We are knocking down one building, and we are renovating another. We call it the welding lab, and we are building one new 2-story building on that campus. Go ahead, slide to the picture. There's the gymnasium is behind. I believe that is the gymnasium behind it, and it's from the groundbreaking ceremony. And there are some of the photos of the demolition already underway. Okay, Timber Trace, very interesting project. This is our core expansions. I will say, if anybody questions the strength of our teachers and our students, lived through a core expansion. That's all I have to say. It's very disruptive to have contractors working inside the school where students are, sectioning off areas where they work. It's disruptive. It causes challenges all the way around in the learning environment. In this particular case, when we had the core expansion, we were expanding the cafeteria, making it much bigger. Well, that meant that the students had to eat in their classrooms. And that is certainly a disruption for them. The photo on the right is one of the cool things that we're now looking at doing is that's actually a vision of the principal there. This is for our pickup and drop off, the aftercare kind of pickup. They've got a window out front so that the parents don't enter into the school. They're out on the parking lot on the sidewalk out in front. They get to come to the window and make sure that Johnny or Jane's coming to the door, and staff brings them down and discharges them out the door to mom waiting. And you'll see that we actually have a roll up behind it so that it actually is closed and secured at the end, because it's kind of hard to secure a glass bulletproof window with a cutout for passing information. So that's why we had to do the roll down. But it's an interesting concept, and it's something we may look to use at future schools. Next up, Seminole Trails is also, same kind of thing. We've been working on that for quite some time. We're coming down the end. We anticipate that our cafeteria, all the work will be done by the end of May, or by the beginning of May. Minor projects, and again, I want to stress that this is just a smattering of the projects. It's a very small portion of the, I would say, 200 plus projects, Dorothy, that Dorothy is overseeing under the minor projects wing. And that's it. Are there any questions?
I got a couple, still contracted with AECom.
Yes.
And when the sales tax ends, we're probably going to be a couple years after the sales tax ends before we spend all the money. What's our contract with AECom look like? Do they stay on all the way through spending of all that sales tax money and the projects? Or is there a termination date that they're done before we?
They will be done before. If the extra few years will be done through district staff services.
Okay.
At least the contract is contemplated that way. It's a 10-year contract, but it's a series of 1-year contracts, but right up to until year 10. The advantage we have is because we have that extra year with them, we're going to be closing down the program a year early, right? We know that we're going to, so we will have them on for at least 1 year when theoretically no work is going on. So they will be helping us close the program out. But we've been working with AECom to make sure that when the time comes, we've got our Michael's got the whole finance section of his department that has taken over a lot of the activities to understand what's going on and basically how do we reconcile all that information. As you're familiar, we currently work side by side, hand in hand with AECom on everything from going to ISOC, needing additional money for additional scopes. So all those activities are being jointly worked through. It's not like AECom's doing it and that they're going to drop the ball, walk out the door, and we have to figure it out. We're heavily involved in all those activities, so it's not for fear that when they leave, we won't know what to do.
Are they using any proprietary software that all of a sudden they leave and it's like, oh, we can't get to that information?
Not at this time.
Okay.
And we're actually working on our own software project. I mean, whether it's a Procore or a Kahoot or somebody, some sort of software program that we will be able to manage, track all of our projects, whether they be minor projects, major projects, security projects, as well the funding associated with them and scope items on.
Okay. The school board has granted approval to go forward with another sales tax to make it continuous. Do you foresee the funds coming in paying for projects to need another AECom? Or whether that would be intended to be all in-house managed?
Okay, I was going to say I have an answer, but I would love it if my superior might have weighed in on that.
Well, I didn't want to jump in if I didn't need to, but I wanted to point out, one is that the sales tax revenue is ending early. The sales tax projects are not ending.
We'll continue
early.
on.
Okay, so just because we're ending a year early with the sales tax doesn't mean that the projects are going to go away. And as Dave mentioned, we're we've continued to renew AECOM's contract, and we will run out of renewals at some point, and then we'll have to resolicit that those services. And AECOM will have a chance to win again, or somebody else we have a chance to win. But for purchasing rules, we'll have to resolicit at the end of the 10 years, regardless of our intent to renew or not. In terms of what happens with the next referendum, again, it all aligns with them. AECOM contract is not tied to, not literally tied to the referendum. So again, we're assuming that we do pass the referendum in this November. We will determine whether what level of support we need. I think that we'll always need some kind of support, but we'll have to determine what level we'll need, and then we'll make a determination about whether what solicitation we'll put out at that point. Did I answer your question?
I guess the idea is we will always look for some supplemental support in the program management division and not try to internalize it 100%.
I think as much as we can internalize it, there'll still always be some kind of need for some outside services. We'll just have to, like I said, determine what level that is.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for the staff updates? Okay. Follow-up. We had one page of follow-up, just information. Virginia.
I wanted to not to talk about the follow-ups, but I thought the discussion items might be where I could ask the question about the school board workshop yesterday that indicated that they will be going forward with the Riviera Beach High School. And I just wondered, I think is this next week that they're going to vote on that? And I wondered if we had another month, if we had property, if we had a budget item to go forward, how will that be handled?
Yeah, there are going to be a couple of action items that revolve around that decision. And for the folks who didn't see the workshop or hear about it or read about it in the paper, with the vote, there was a workshop, so it wasn't a vote yesterday, but there was consensus around the idea of building a new high school for Riviera Beach at the location of the current Inlet Grove, or if you remember back when, the old Suncoast High School site. So we're going to be, so Inlet Grove is going to be moving to Lincoln Elementary's campus, and then the students from Lincoln Elementary will probably be either moved to a different school, or we may be relocated to a couple of different schools. We'll have to work through that process, with the academic team on how we address the Lincoln students. There are going to be a number of actions that are going to take place. We're most likely going to have to terminate the agreements that we have on Inlet Grove right now. We have an architect and contractor there. So since we're not going to be proceeding with that work, I'm sorry that newsflash, but we're going to have to do something different over there. That'll probably be one of the early actions, and then we'll have to solicit for a new designer for the Inlet Grove campus at Lincoln. And then at the same time, not at the same time, but at some point we'll have to bring back an action to select an architect. But also one of the early actions is that we're going to have to get the budget amended. And I know Ms. Evans is working on how that looks, and because the monies have to be shifted around, and we have to plug in another $150 million for this new high school. So there's going to be a budget amendment that the board, that's probably going to be one of the early actions that the board's going to have to agree to.
What is your proposed timeline, or is there not one yet?
There is. So the proposed timeline is that we would open the new Inlet Grove High School at the Lincoln campus in 2028. The new high school, the new Riviera Beach area high school to be named, will be opening in August of 2030. And then, this whole conversation also, we were talking about North Tech and Newberry Beach Prep. But those are not directly affected by the decision to open this new high school. But just for information, those are planned to open August 2027.
Thank you. Very, very, very interesting. Thank you.
Don Cheshire.
Yeah, my comments on the follow-up items.
Yes.
Could I request that the month the item was added to the list be shown on the list?
Yes, good point.
Yep, and I do have the items moving, I know we've talked about the policy items, and I've got a couple other items that are potentially coming to CORC, not soon, but the three policy items that we've had for quite some time are moving towards approval by going through the workshop and the board approval in the next couple of months.
Okay, any other discussion items by CORC members? All right, on the agenda is our next meeting, April 11th. Anyone have issues on the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are accepted as written. Thank you, Dorothy.
As far as the next meeting is concerned, is there any, this isn't meant to be an ask, but for a change in the time, but some of us have potentially have a conflict at that meeting on April 11th. Is there an objection to a later time for doing CORC, or is it more in line with everybody's understanding of that this time it works for your general monthly schedules? Is there any feedback on that?
Later works for me.
Yeah, you mean later in the day, like 1 o'clock?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that's no problem with me.
Anyone have like a 1 o'clock on the April 11th problem that they know of?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Just a heads up for quorum purposes. I may be flying back from chasing the eclipse, but schedule as you need.
Okay. As an alternative, if we have conflicts, what about changing it to Friday the 12th?
I will not be here.
Okay.
That's
All right, well, let's look for 1 p.m. on the 11th then. That works.
All right, we'll look into it, and certainly, Dorothy, we'll poll the members to see, make sure everybody's okay, because we want to make sure it's viable for everybody. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much for your consideration on that.
It should be viable for as many as we can get to still get a quorum. I don't want to bump anybody out, but we also need to have a meeting. So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that those times will work. However, that Monday I close on my existing house. So, I'll be moving everything in. And so that week is sort of up in the air, but I'll try to move things around.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything that we want specifically for our next agenda? If you come up with something, you can email Dorothy and she can add it to the agenda for discussion. Other than that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
We turn
Is it over? Frank?
What?
Is it over?
Yeah.
You want to get half a bagel for me?
I was going to make eggs.
You have time?